on, y'all? My name is Spice. This is Spice Catfish. So today's video is going to be the first in a little bit of a mini-series that I want to do on the channel. Just a few reviews of some of the gear that I was able to try over the past year. So when I first got a lot of this gear, I did like an initial first impressions of it all, but I wanted to come back like a year later after I've had some time to put all the gear together, put it to use, get to know it, really understand if I like it or not, what I don't like about stuff if I don't, and just really get a good idea of like what each individual piece of equipment could do. But I was able to put all this gear to the test over the past year, and now I'm here to bring you guys my final thoughts and opinions on them. I figured what better way to start this review series than with one of my favorite reels, the Shimano SLX DC. Before we get any further into today's video, if you guys really do like the video, do me a favor, go down below and hit that like button for me. It lets more people see these videos, and more importantly, it lets me know that you guys like the content and you want to see some more of it. On top of that, if y'all do want to see some more content from me, go down below and hit that subscribe button as well. I put up 2 new videos every single week, so if y'all are interested in seeing some more reviews, some more unboxing, stuff like that, and of course, once we get into the fishing season, some actual fishing from me, then go down below and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. But anyway, I'm going to start off by talking about just some of the specs of this reel. So I actually have some of the specs pulled up on my computer over here, so I'm just going to read these out to you real quick. First up, I want to point out this is the 150HG series, so it's the 7.2:1 gear ratio reel. So this was actually the first gear ratio that they came out with this reel in, the 7.2:1. I picked this up when it was the only gear ratio that you could get. That's fine, honestly. 7.2:1 is kind of like your standard gear ratio. A 7-speed gear ratio is going to be what you find the majority of your reels in these days. But they also came out with a 6.3:1 as well as an 8.2:1 gear ratio version as well. Also, like I said, this is the 150HG, so it's the right-hand retrieve as opposed to the left-hand retrieve. A lot of people think that I would use a left-hand retrieve because I am left-handed, but I actually like to set the hook a little bit harder with my left hand, so I use my right hand to reel. Pretty much the same reason that a lot of people are switching over to left-handed retrieves is why I switched to a right-handed retrieve. It's just backwards because I'm left-handed as opposed to right-handed like most people are. So this reel is able to hold 120 yards of 10-pound mono, or 110 pounds of 12-pound, or 90 yards of 14-pound mono. Right now I have 17-pound fluorocarbon on here, so it's holding even less than that. It's probably holding about, I don't know, 80 yards or so of line. But I've never had any issues with casting all the line off the spool unless I was already kind of low on line to begin with. It's not the deepest spool, but it definitely gets the job done, especially if you're doing like pond hopping or some kayak fishing like I am. The 150HG version retrieves 30 inches of line per crank of the handle, so every time I turn that handle, it brings in an extra 30 inches of line. It's got 4+1 bearings on it, 11 pounds of maximum drag, and it weighs about 7.6 ounces. So overall, not a super heavy reel, pretty lightweight for what it is. It's very palmable, very easy to fit in your hand. If you guys have smaller hands like I do, you guys kind of realize that holding some of these bigger bait casts is a little bit wonky. And I thought it was going to be the same way with this because it has the DC chip in it, so obviously it's going to be a little bit bigger because it has to make room for that DC chip. But it actually sits in your hand really nicely. This reel, I believe, retails for just under $200. I think it's like $190 or something like that, $189, somewhere around there. You probably find them cheaper or used or something on eBay, but if you want to buy a new one, I think that's just about how much they cost. Anyway, that's enough of the technical, boring stuff. Now I'm actually going to get into my opinions on the reel. So like I said before, this is one of my favorite reels that I own right now. I'm starting to switch all of my reels over to Shimano, which you guys may or may not be able to notice at this point. Obviously with Shimano name comes Shimano long-lasting quality and Shimano durability and all the things that come with buying a premium brand. Now obviously when you buy a reel, you have that honeymoon phase where after you buy it, the first few times you use it, it's just the best thing ever. But after that, I started to notice that this reel kind of, I mean, it's not a bad reel for sure, but it didn't necessarily stand up to what I was expecting it to be. So first up, the DC braking system in this. If you guys don't know about the DC brakes, there are 2 different DC chips that you can get. The Shimano SLX DC as well as I think the Corrado DC, both use the IDC4 braking chips. But once you go above that Corrado and you get into the Scorpions and the Metaniums and the Antareses and stuff like that, that have all the more expensive DC brakes in them, they start using what's called the IDC5 chip, which is a little bit more high-tech with regard to keeping backlashes down and stuff like that. So obviously I'm not expecting this to be the greatest thing ever, but I was expecting the DC chip in it at least to be relatively good at keeping backlashes out. If you guys don't know, the Corrado DC has a reputation for being almost unbacklashable. Is that a word? Unbacklashable? I don't know. Anyway, they have this reputation of being notoriously difficult to backlash, which obviously is a good thing if you're looking for a high-end reel. Now, because they have the same chip in there, I thought that they would be pretty comparable with their amount of unbacklashability, I guess. But I noticed this reel actually had some problems with backlashing when I was tuning it in. Obviously now when I use it, I don't have an issue with it hardly ever, but when I was first tuning it in and really trying to get to know the reel, it was kind of difficult and a little bit frustrating to get right. Then obviously as I used the reel more and more, I dialed it in a bit better and got to use it a little bit more, got to understand it a little bit better, and the backlash, just like I said, kind of backed off in a way. But the other thing that I kind of noticed about this reel is it doesn't feel super solid. It's kind of weird. Like, it definitely feels a lot more solid than a lot of my other reels that are made out of like lighter aluminum or sometimes even plastic. But for some reason, this reel, it just, when you cast it and when you retrieve it, it just feels kind of grindy, kind of whiny. I don't know. It feels like it's struggling almost. That might be because I use it for lures that range from like the 3/8 to 3/4 ounce range on this, but I really don't think that I would have that much of an impact on this reel. So I'm wondering if it has something to do with the actual body and frame that it's built around, the actual SLX itself. Now, if you guys have seen the SLX, they're like $99 reels. The XT is $130, I think, so they're not super expensive as far as Shimano's go. But like I said, it just doesn't feel like the most solid reel. Like when you pull on it and push on it, everything stays together, there's no give or anything. So structurally it's a sound reel, but I don't know. It just feels kind of weird. I know I'm not doing a great job of explaining what it feels like. I don't really know how to explain it. You just really have to pick up an SLX and then maybe pick up a different reel that's a little bit higher quality, and you'd kind of understand what I'm getting at. But it just kind of like, you can feel everything moving around. It definitely doesn't feel high quality, I guess. It feels like it came off an assembly line, which it did, so I'm not going to discredit the reel for that or anything, but it doesn't feel like a high-end reel like the same way that I thought it was going to. So my final thoughts and opinions on this reel: if you guys are looking for an SLX, I would definitely suggest either getting the XT or the DC. I can't personally speak on the XT, but I've heard it's decent, and the DC is, again, also a decent reel. And if you're really just looking for a DC chip just to make the noise that you're looking for, then this would probably be the one that I would suggest, just because it's the lowest end one and it's not super out of the reach of most people. But back when I was gonna buy this reel, I was debating between this and just saving up the extra $50 or $60 and buying a Corrado DC. And looking back on it, I honestly think I probably would have rathered the Corrado. Now, it's not to say this isn't a good reel. I don't enjoy this reel or anything. I really do. I like the reel. I think it's good. But from what I've heard about the Corrado DCs versus the SLX DCs, the Corrados seem like way better of an investment. They seem like they last a lot longer. They seem like they have better components. And they all around just seem like a little bit more of a solid reel. In the future, I will definitely continue using this reel. I'll probably use it for swim jigs and chatterbaits for the time being. And if I end up upgrading to something a little bit better at some point, maybe I'll switch that out and use this for smaller swim baits or something. And that's really where I can see this reel shining, is if you're throwing like lighter belly weighted swim baits or maybe even Senkos or something like that. It's just a really good reel for throwing light baits. But again, if you start throwing in some heavier stuff like 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce jigs, stuff like that, you are going to start noticing that the reel doesn't feel like it can handle it. And it can handle that stuff absolutely fine. I've thrown lures that are upwards of 1.5 ounces on this reel with almost no problems. But long term, would I use it for something like that? No. I think this is probably going to shine for your lighter applications. Again, like a small paddle tail swim bait, or maybe a Senko, or a lighter swim jig, like 1/4 or 3/8 of an ounce, something like that. That's going to be really where I see this reel shining. But I really hope I was able to give you guys some insight into this reel, whether or not you guys should buy it for yourselves. I tried to be as unbiased as possible. Again, I've used this reel for a long time. I have grown to like this reel a lot. I didn't want to bash it too hard, because at the end of the day, it is a really good reel, and I would suggest this. If you guys were to tell me, oh, pick 2 reels out of your entire arsenal that you would suggest for people, this would obviously be one of the 2 choices. And if you're new and you're trying to learn how to not backlash a reel, I would definitely suggest picking up a DC And if you're looking for a cheaper one, this would be one of the ones that I would suggest. The only thing that I would say is if you look at that little knob on the side where you change the tension or the brakes, I would turn that all the way to like the 3 setting or the 4 setting, something like that, one of those two, to really keep those backlashes down as opposed to the 1 or 2 setting that I usually leave it on. But again, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and it helped you guys out a little bit. Be sure to like and subscribe if you guys are interested in seeing some more content from me. But until next time, check and wreck 'em. I'm out. Peace.